My name is Clarice Holloway, and I am 72 years old. The day my husband said I couldn't survive without him, he said it calmly. No shouting. No anger. Just certainty. That made it worse. He stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, watching me fold laundry like I had done for decades. His face held that same look he always used when he thought he was being reasonable, when he thought he was right. You know, he said, you wouldn't make it on your own. I stopped folding. Slowly, I looked up at him. What? I asked. He sighed, like I had asked something foolish. I'm just being honest, he said. You need me. That was the moment. The moment something inside me shifted. Before I go any further, let me speak to you. If you love deep, emotional stories about strength, betrayal, and women who rise when they're told they can't, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss stories like mine. And please tell me in the comments what part of the country you're watching from. I want to know who's here with me. Because what happened after my husband said those words changed everything. My husband's name is Walter Holloway. We had been married for 47 years. 47. That's longer than some people live. People like to say things like, that's beautiful when they hear a number like that. They imagine love, loyalty, growing old together. They don't imagine control. They don't imagine silence. They don't imagine a woman shrinking slowly so her husband can feel tall. Walter believed he was my protector. But protection should not feel like a cage. You're getting older, he continued, leaning against the doorframe. You forget things, you get tired. You wouldn't know how to handle bills, doctors, repairs, life. Each word landed carefully. Measured. Like he had practiced them. I handled life before you, I said quietly. He laughed. A short laugh. That was a long time ago, Clarice, he replied. Things are different now. No. I was different now. And not in the way he meant. I folded the towel in my hands too tightly. My fingers hurt, but I didn't let go. I'm not helpless, I said. He shook his head. You don't see it, he said. That's the problem. That sentence echoed in my mind long after he walked away. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Walter slept beside me, breathing heavy and steady like a man who believed everything was exactly as it should be. I thought about all the things he handled for me. The bank account I no longer saw. The mail he sorted before I touched it. The phone calls he answered and said, I'll handle it. When had that started? Slowly. Quietly. Like a dimmer switch being turned down little by little. The next morning, Walter brought me coffee in bed. People might think that sounds kind. But kindness does not come with conditions. You should rest today, he said. I'll take care of everything. I sat up. I didn't say I was tired, I replied. He frowned slightly. I know you better than you know yourself, he said. That sentence scared me. Later that day, my sister Marjorie called. I haven't seen you in a while, she said. You okay? I opened my mouth to answer. Walter's voice came from across the room. She's fine, he said loudly. Just tired. I hadn't put the phone on speaker. I looked at him. He smiled. I closed my eyes. Yes, I said into the phone. I'm fine. When I hung up, something in my chest felt tight. That was the first lie I told to keep the peace. It wouldn't be the last. That evening, we argued. Not loudly. Quiet arguments hurt more. You don't trust me, Walter said. I trust myself, I replied. He scoffed. You'd be lost without me, he said again. You know that. I stood there, staring at the man I had cooked for, cleaned for, supported through job losses and bad health. The man who once cried on my shoulder and said, I don't know what I'd do without you. And now he was telling me I couldn't survive without him. That night, I went into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was gray now, my face lined with years of smiling and worrying. My eyes tired but sharp. "I am still here," I whispered. But doubt has a quiet voice. It crept in. What if he's right? What if you really can't do it alone anymore? That thought scared me more than anything. The next morning, Walter left early. I sat at the kitchen table alone, the house silent except for the ticking clock. I noticed something strange. The silence felt open, not heavy, not watchful, just quiet. I realized I could breathe deeper when he wasn't there. That realization felt dangerous and freeing. I stood up and walked to the cabinet where we kept important papers. It was locked. That hadn't always been the case. I tried the drawer in the desk. Locked too. My heart started beating faster. When did that happen? I went to the closet and pulled down an old box. Inside were things Walter didn't think mattered anymore. Old bank statements, letters, documents with my name on them, proof that I had once managed things, proof that I wasn't always dependent. I sat on the floor and went through them slowly. Each paper felt like a memory coming back to life. That afternoon, Walter came home early. He found me sitting there. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply. I looked up. "Remembering," I said. His jaw tightened. "You don't need to worry about those things," he said. "I've got it handled." "I want to see them," I replied. He stepped closer. "You don't understand them anymore," he said. That was it. That was the line. "I understand myself," I said, standing up, "and I understand what you're doing." He laughed again. "You're overthinking," he said. "You always did that." No. I had stopped thinking out loud. That's what he liked. That night, the argument grew sharper. "You're being ungrateful," Walter said, "after everything I've done for you." "I never asked to be erased," I replied. He slammed his hand on the table. "You'd fall apart without me," he said. "You know it." The room went quiet. I felt something break. Not loudly. Cleanly. I went to bed without another word. Walter slept. I didn't. I stared into the dark and made a decision. Not to leave. Not yet. But to test the truth. The next morning, while Walter was out, I made a phone call. Just one. To the bank. "I'd like to ask about my account," I said. The woman on the phone paused. "I'm sorry," she said. "You're not listed as the primary contact." My heart sank. "Can you add me?" I asked. She hesitated. "You'll need authorization," she replied. From Walter. That afternoon, I walked to the mailbox. For the first time in years, I opened the mail myself. Most of it wasn't addressed to me. That wasn't an accident. When Walter came home, I asked him directly. "Why am I not listed on my own account?" I asked. He didn't even look surprised. "Because it's easier," he said. "For who?" I asked. "For us," he replied. "No. For him." That night, he said it again. "You need me to survive." And this time, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I just listened. And inside my chest, a quiet voice answered him. "No, I don't." But I didn't know yet how I would prove it. Only that I would. And soon. The next morning, Walter left the house like nothing had changed. That was how he always did it. After saying something cruel or controlling, he acted normal, calm, confident, as if the words he dropped the night before were harmless, as if they didn't stay behind and echo long after he walked out the door. He kissed my cheek before leaving. "You'll be all right today," he said. "Don't strain yourself." I forced a small smile. "I'll be fine," I replied. The door closed behind him with a soft click. And for the first time in years, I stood alone in the quiet and realized something important. No one was watching me. The house felt different when Walter wasn't there. Not empty. Open. I walked slowly from room to room, touching things I hadn't paid attention to in a long time. The edge of the table, the window frame, the arm of the couch, where I used to sit and read before Walter said my eyes were too tired for books. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the clock. It was only 9 in the morning. Plenty of time. Time he always said I didn't know how to manage. I thought about the bank call from the day before. You're not listed as the primary contact. That sentence still sat heavy in my chest. I had worked for years. I had paid into that account. I had trusted Walter to handle things fairly. But trust does not survive control. I stood up and went to the bedroom. In the back of the closet, behind coats and boxes, I found my old handbag. The one I used before Walter said it was too bulky and bought me a smaller purse he liked better. Inside the old bag, I found my driver's license. I held it in my hand for a long moment. My name was printed clearly. Clarice Holloway. Not Walter's wife. Not someone's dependent. Me. My heart started beating faster. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I just knew I needed to do something on my own. Something small. Something real. I put on my shoes. Comfortable ones. Walter hated them. He said they made me look older than I needed to. I liked them. I grabbed my keys. Walter usually took the car, but today he had walked to the corner to catch a ride with a coworker. The car was still in the driveway. I hesitated with my hand on the door. What if he comes back early? What if I mess something up? What if he's right? I closed my eyes. I can do this, I whispered. And I stepped outside. The sunlight felt warm on my face. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd gone out alone, without telling Walter where I was going, without asking if he needed anything first. I sat in the driver's seat and adjusted the mirror. I looked at myself. You've driven before, I said out loud. You know how. I turned the key. The engine started. Nothing dramatic happened. The world didn't end. That made me smile. I drove slowly. Carefully. Not because I was scared. Because I was present. Every stop sign. Every turn. Every breath. I hadn't felt this focused in years. I parked in front of the bank. The same bank Walter had handled for us for decades. My hands trembled as I stepped out of the car. I smoothed my blouse and walked inside. The bank was quiet. A few people stood in line. A young woman behind the counter smiled politely. How can I help you today? She asked. I swallowed. I'd like to speak about my account, I said. She typed something into the computer. Name, she asked. Clarice Holloway, I replied. She frowned slightly. I see an account, she said, but you're not listed as the primary holder. I know, I said. I'd like to change that. She hesitated. Is your husband available to authorize that? She asked. The word husband hit me hard. No, I said firmly. I'm available. She looked uncertain. I'll need to call my manager, she said. That's fine, I replied. My voice didn't shake. While I waited, doubt tried to creep in again. What if this proves him right? What if you can't do this alone? I pushed the thoughts away. This wasn't about winning. It was about trying. The manager came over. An older man with kind eyes. How can I help? He asked. I want access to my own account, I said. I contributed to it. I earned that money too. He listened carefully. Do you have identification? He asked. I handed him my license. He studied it. Then he nodded. We can review this, he said. It may take some paperwork. That's okay, I replied. We talked for almost an hour. Forms, questions, explanations. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible either. And that mattered. When I walked out of the bank, my legs felt weak, but my chest felt light. I hadn't fixed everything. Not yet. But I had done something Walter said I couldn't do. I sat in the car and laughed softly. Not because it was funny, because it was freeing. On the drive home, I stopped at a small cafe. I hadn't been there in years. Walter said it was a waste of money. I ordered tea and sat by the window. No one rushed me. No one corrected my choices. I watched people walk by and realized something else. The world hadn't been waiting for Walter's permission to let me live. When I got home, the house felt different again. Not because it was quiet, but because I was different. I moved through the rooms with more confidence. I noticed things. The locked drawers, the missing papers, the spaces where my voice used to be. Walter came home late that afternoon. He hung up his jacket and looked around. "You go somewhere?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Where?" he asked. "I ran some errands," I replied. He frowned. "You should have told me," he said. "I didn't need to," I replied. That made him pause. "What errands?" he asked. I met his eyes. "I went to the bank," I said. The color drained from his face. "You had no reason to do that," he said quickly. "I had every reason," I replied. He stepped closer. "You don't understand those things anymore," he said sharply. I shook my head. "I understood enough," I replied. His jaw tightened. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I asked questions," I said, "the same way I used to." He laughed, but it sounded forced. "You're making trouble," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm waking up." That night, Walter was quiet. Too quiet. He didn't argue. He didn't push. That worried me more than anger. Because men who need control don't give it up easily. They change tactics. I lay in bed that night, staring into the dark. My body felt tired, but my mind felt alive. I had crossed a line. Not away from him. Toward myself. I knew this was only the beginning. Walter would notice the shift. He would feel it. And when he did, he would try to pull me back into the place he was comfortable with. The smaller place. The quieter place. But something had changed. I had felt it in the bank. In the car. In my own voice. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't lost. I wasn't dependent in the way he wanted me to believe. As sleep finally came, one thought stayed with me. Walter thought I needed him to survive. He had no idea how much bigger my life could be without his shadow. And he was about to find out. Walter did not say a word that night. That silence told me everything. He ate dinner without comment. He washed his hands. He watched television like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just stepped outside the cage he built so carefully around my life. But I knew Walter. When he went quiet like that, it meant he was thinking. Planning. I lay in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. Slow, even, confident. The kind of breathing that belonged to a man who believed he was still in control. I turned onto my side and closed my eyes. But sleep would not come. The next morning, he woke before me. By the time I walked into the kitchen, the table was already set. Coffee poured, toast buttered. The newspaper folded neatly beside his plate. "You didn't sleep well," he said without looking up. "I slept fine," I replied. He glanced at me, eyes sharp. "You were restless," he said. "You tossed and turned." I poured myself coffee. "I had a lot on my mind," I said. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "You've been unsettled lately." That word again. Unsettled. Another way to say wrong. He slid something across the table toward me. A folded paper. What's this? I asked. Information, he said. Helpful information. I unfolded it. It was a brochure. A retirement community. Smiling couples, neat lawns, words like support, care, peace of mind. My stomach dropped. I didn't ask for this, I said. I know, he replied calmly. I did. He sipped his coffee. These places help people like you, he continued. People who are getting overwhelmed. I looked up at him. People like me, I asked. Clarice, he sighed, you're not as strong as you think you are. Something in me hardened. You don't get to decide that, I said. He leaned back in his chair. I already have, he replied. That was when I understood. Walter wasn't afraid of me leaving. He was afraid of me, realizing I didn't need him. And fear makes people cruel. You went behind my back, he said, tapping the brochure. You went to the bank without telling me. I didn't need permission, I replied. His jaw tightened. You don't understand how dangerous that is, he said. Dangerous to who? I asked. To us, he replied quickly. No. To him. After breakfast, Walter left the house again. But this time, something felt different. Like he wasn't just going to work. Like he was setting something in motion. I spent the morning cleaning slowly. Not because the house needed it. Because my hands needed something to do while my mind worked. I replayed every word he had said. People like you. Overwhelmed. Help. They weren't concerned words. They were labels. Around noon, the phone rang. I answered. Mrs. Holloway, a woman asked. Yes. This is CareLink Services, she said. Your husband contacted us about support options for you. My chest tightened. I didn't request that, I said. Oh, she replied, surprised. He said you were interested. I am not, I said clearly. There was a pause. I see, she said. Thank you for letting us know. When the call ended, my hands were shaking. So that was his plan. If he couldn't scare me into shrinking, he would make others see me as small. I sat down at the table and took a deep breath. Then I did something I had never done before. I called Marjorie. Not to chat. Not to complain. To tell the truth. Walter thinks I can't survive without him, I said as soon as she answered. There was silence on the line. What? She asked. He's trying to arrange things, I continued. Behind my back. Marjorie exhaled slowly. I always wondered, she said. Wondered what? I asked. If he was controlling you, she replied. The words hit me harder than anything Walter had said. You saw it, I asked. I felt it, she said, but you never said anything. I swallowed. I didn't know how, I replied. That afternoon, Marjorie came over. She sat in my living room, looking around like she was seeing it clearly for the first time. He decides everything, she said softly. Yes, I replied. She looked at me. Do you want to change that? She asked. Yes, I said without hesitation. When Walter came home, he froze at the sight of her. What's this? He asked. Company, I replied. Marjorie stood. We need to talk, she said. Walter forced a smile. There's nothing to discuss, he said. There is, she replied firmly. You don't get to decide Clarice's life. His smile faded. This is between husband and wife, he snapped. No, Marjorie said. It's between a woman and her freedom. Walter turned to me. You've been talking, he said. Yes, I replied. His eyes narrowed. You're confused, he said. They're filling your head. I stood up. No, I said. You emptied it for years. The argument that followed was quiet but sharp. Walter denied everything. Said he was protecting me. said I was exaggerating, said I was being influenced. Marjorie didn't argue. She listened, and that scared him. That night, after she left, Walter turned on me. "You embarrassed me," he said. "I told the truth," I replied. "You're tearing this family apart," he snapped. "I'm putting myself back together," I said. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. And in a way, he didn't. Because I wasn't the woman who needed him to decide everything. I was becoming someone else. Someone taller. That night, I didn't sleep in the bed. I slept on the couch. Not out of fear. Out of distance. As I stared at the dark ceiling, I realized something important. Walter had tried to shrink me back into place. But once you feel how big you really are, you cannot fit back into a box. And Walter was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Walter woke me before dawn. Not gently. Not kindly. He stood over the couch, his shadow falling across my face like a warning. I opened my eyes slowly and met his stare. He looked calm, but there was something tight behind it, something restless. "You're not sleeping in here again," he said. "I am," I replied. He exhaled sharply through his nose. "This isn't healthy," he said. "You're acting unstable." That word again. Unstable. It landed hard in my chest, but I didn't move. "I'm acting awake," I said. He walked away, muttering under his breath. I stayed where I was until I heard the bedroom door close. Only then did I sit up. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. That mattered. For years, Walter had used words like tired, forgetful, emotional, and confused to describe me. He said them softly, like concern. But every word had the same purpose, to make me doubt myself. And fear is easier to control than truth. When I finally stood up, the house felt colder. Not because of the temperature. Because something had shifted. Walter wasn't just trying to manage me anymore. He was trying to scare me back into silence. At breakfast, he barely spoke. He watched me closely instead, like he was waiting for me to slip, waiting for proof that I was exactly what he said I was. I made my tea. I buttered my toast. I ate slowly. "You should sit down," he said. "You're shaking." I looked at my hands. They were still. "I'm fine," I said. He frowned. "You don't see it," he replied. "That's what worries me." I looked up at him. "No," I said. "That's what frustrates you." He slammed his cup down harder than necessary. "You're not thinking clearly," he snapped. "You're pushing people away." "I'm letting people see me," I said. He stood up. "This is exactly why you need help," he said. "You're turning everything into a fight." I met his eyes. "You turn my life into a cage," I replied. Silence followed. Heavy. Dangerous. That afternoon, Walter did something I never expected. He invited someone over. Without telling me. I was in the living room when the doorbell rang. Walter answered it before I could even stand. A woman stepped inside. She was well-dressed, holding a clipboard and wearing a polite smile. "Clarice," Walter said, "this is Linda. She works with Senior Support Services." My stomach dropped. I stood up slowly. "I didn't agree to this," I said. Walter waved his hand. "It's just a conversation," he said. "No harm in that." Linda smiled nervously. "I'm here to talk about options," she said. "Support, safety." I looked at her. "I don't need support," I said. "I need my husband to stop speaking for me." Walter laughed softly. "You see," he said to her, "she gets defensive." That was it. That was the line. I walked toward the door and opened it wide. "Please leave," I said to Linda. "Now." She hesitated and looked at Walter. "Clarice," he started. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to do this." Linda's smile faded. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't know." She stepped outside. I closed the door behind her. My hands were shaking now, but my voice had not. Walter exploded. "You embarrass me," he shouted. I turned toward him. "You tried to hand me over like a problem," I said, "in my own house." "You're not thinking straight," he yelled. "I'm thinking clearer than I have in years," I shouted back. He pointed a finger at me. "You wouldn't last a month without me," he said. "You don't know how the world works anymore." I laughed. Not loudly, but honestly. "I went to the bank," I said. "I made phone calls, I drove myself, I spoke for myself." His face tightened. "You got lucky," he said. "No," I replied. "I got brave." That night, he changed again. He didn't yell. He apologized. That scared me more. "I'm just worried," he said softly, sitting across from me. "I don't want anything bad to happen to you." I looked at him carefully. "Then stop trying to control me," I said. He reached for my hand. "You're scared," he said. "That's okay." I pulled my hand back. "No," I said, "you are." He stared at me like he didn't know which version of himself to use anymore. That was when I realized something important. Walter had always been this way. I just hadn't named it. Later that night, after he went to bed, I called Marjorie again. "I think he's trying to push me into something," I said. She didn't hesitate. "You can stay with me," she replied. The words hit me hard. Leave. I wasn't ready yet, but knowing I could mattered. The next morning, Walter handed me another paper. This one wasn't a brochure. It was a list. Appointments. Evaluations. Next steps. "I've scheduled a checkup for you," he said. "I didn't agree to that," I replied. "You don't have to," he said. "It's happening." Something cold slid through my chest. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about concern. This was about control becoming official. I looked at the paper, then at him. "You don't get to decide this," I said. He smiled thinly. "We'll see," he replied. That afternoon, I packed a small bag. Not to leave forever. Just to be ready. Documents. My license. Some cash. Proof. When Walter noticed, his voice dropped low. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Preparing," I replied. "For what?" he asked. "For myself," I said. He stepped closer. "You walk out that door," he said, "and you'll regret it." I met his gaze. "I already regret staying quiet for so long," I said. That night, I slept on the couch again. But this time, not in fear. In readiness. Because I knew something now. Walter wasn't going to stop. Which meant I would have to. I did not leave that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to leave on my own terms, not pushed, not rushed, not chased out by fear. That mattered. Walter slept in the bedroom. I slept on the couch, my small bag tucked beside me like a quiet promise. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned, listening to the sounds of the house I had lived in for almost 50 years. The ticking clock. The refrigerator humming. The soft creak of the floor when Walter shifted in his sleep. This house had heard my laughter, my crying, my prayers whispered late at night when no one else was listening. And now it had heard my awakening. Morning came gray and slow. Walter woke early. I could tell by the way cabinets opened and closed harder than necessary. He wanted me to hear him. He wanted to remind me he was still there. I stayed still. When I finally walked into the kitchen, he was standing by the sink, arms crossed. "You're really serious about this nonsense," he said. "It's not nonsense," I replied. "It's my life." He shook his head. "You don't even know where you'd go," he said. "I do," I replied. That made him pause. "Where?" he asked. I poured myself coffee. "Somewhere I can breathe," I said. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "You think Marjorie's going to save you?" he asked. I think I can save myself, I replied. That was when his face hardened. You walk out that door, he said slowly, and don't expect to come back begging. I looked at him. I'm not begging, I said. I'm choosing. He scoffed. You're too old to start over, he said. I met his eyes. I'm too old to stay trapped, I replied. That was the first door. The one inside me. And I closed it. I waited until he left for work. Not because I was sneaking, but because I didn't want another argument. I packed slowly. Not everything. Just what mattered. Clothes I liked. Photos that were mine. My documents. My notebook. I touched each item before placing it in the bag, reminding myself why I was doing this. When I zipped the bag closed, my hands were steady. That mattered too. I stood in the living room one last time and looked around. The couch where I slept too many nights feeling small. The dining table where Walter spoke over me. The walls that held more silence than sound. I'm not disappearing, I whispered. I'm growing. Then I walked out. Marjorie's house smelled like coffee and fresh bread when I arrived. She opened the door and wrapped her arms around me without a word. I'm proud of you, she said softly. I nodded. So am I replied. The first night there felt strange. Too quiet. Too free. No one telling me when to rest. No one correcting my words. No one watching my choices. Freedom can feel uncomfortable when you've lived without it for a long time. I lay awake listening to a different ceiling, in a different house, with my bag at the foot of the bed. And for the first time in years, I slept without fear. Walter called the next morning. I let it ring. Then he left a message. Clarice, this is ridiculous, his voice said. You're proving my point. I deleted it. Not angrily. Deliberately. The second call came an hour later. Then another. Then silence. I knew what that meant. He was switching strategies. By the afternoon, the calls started coming from other people. A cousin. A church friend. Even a neighbor. Each one said the same thing. Walter is worried about you. He says you're confused. He says you walked out suddenly. I listened. Then I spoke. I didn't walk out suddenly, I said calmly. I walked out consciously. Some believed me. Some didn't. But every time I spoke my truth, it felt stronger. Like a muscle finally being used. That evening, Marjorie sat beside me on the couch. He's telling people you'll be back, she said. I smiled faintly. I know, I replied. Will you? She asked gently. I thought about it. The locked drawers. The surprise visits. The appointments I never agreed to. No, I said, I won't. The next day, I took another step. A bigger one. I went to the bank again. This time, not to ask. To chain. I sat across from the same manager. I'm staying with family now, I said. I need independent access to my funds. He nodded. We can do that, he said. It will take some time. That's okay, I replied. I have time. That sentence felt powerful. When I left the bank, my phone buzzed. Walter. I answered this time. What are you doing? He demanded. I'm living, I replied. You're ruining everything, he snapped. No, I said. I'm fixing myself. His voice dropped low. You won't last, he said. You'll see. I closed my eyes. I already am lasting, I replied. And I hung up. That night, doubt tried to return. It crept in quietly. What if he's right? What if this is too much? I sat with the feeling. I didn't push it away. I breathed through it. And then I remembered something important. He had told me I couldn't survive without him. And yet, I was still here. On the third day, something unexpected happened. I laughed. Real laughter. Not polite. Not careful. Free. Marjorie looked at me and smiled. "There you are," she said. "Yes," I replied. "Here I am." That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something else. Leaving the house was not the biggest step. Closing the door behind me was. Because that door, it wasn't just wood and hinges. It was fear. It was doubt. It was the version of me that believed him. And I had closed it. For good. Freedom did not arrive with fireworks. It came quietly. And then it asked for payment. The first bill arrived 2 days after I moved in with Marjorie. It was a simple envelope forwarded from the old house. My name was on it, written in the neat print Walter always used. I stared at it for a long time before opening it, my fingers resting on the edge like the paper might bite me. Inside was a notice. Account access pending review. My stomach dropped. I sat at the kitchen table and read it twice, then a third time. Walter had moved fast. Faster than I expected. Marjorie watched me from across the table. "What is it?" she asked. "He froze things," I said quietly. "At least some of them." She sighed. "I was afraid of that." "So was I replied. This was the price. Not just money. Control fights back when it's threatened. That afternoon, I went back to the bank. Again. The manager recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Holloway," he said kindly, "please have a seat." I explained what had happened. I kept my voice calm. I placed my documents on the desk, my license, my old statements, my notes. He listened. "That hold was placed by your husband," he said, "but it's temporary." "How temporary?" I asked. "A few days," he replied. "We're reviewing ownership and contribution." I nodded. "That's fine," I said. "I can wait." And I meant it. Waiting was different now. Before, waiting meant silence. Now it meant movement. When I got back to Marjorie's, my phone buzzed. "Walter." I didn't answer. Then a message appeared. "You're forcing my hand." I stared at the words. So that was how he saw it. Not consequences. Force. The next message came quickly. This could have stayed private. Private. Like control is something you hide. I turned the phone face down. I would not argue in texts. I had done enough explaining for a lifetime. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a walk alone. The air was cool. Birds moved through the trees. The sidewalk stretched ahead of me, empty and open. With every step, I felt both lighter and heavier. Lighter because I was free. Heavier because freedom comes with responsibility. I was responsible now. For myself. That afternoon, Marjorie sat beside me and spoke gently. "You know he's going to push harder," she said. "I know," I replied. "You ready for that?" I thought about it. The locked drawers. The surprise visitor. The frozen account. "Yes," I said, "I am." The push came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Official. Thick paper. Walter's handwriting again. I opened it slowly. Inside was a copy of a document. A petition. He was requesting formal evaluation. Claiming concern. Claiming confusion. Claiming I was being influenced. My chest tightened, but my hands stayed steady. I read it carefully. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was desperate. Marjorie looked at me, alarmed. "What is it?" "He's trying to make it official," I said. "Control on paper." She shook her head. "That's serious." "Yes," I replied, "and it's also my turning point." I made a call. Not to argue. Not to beg. To prepare. I called a legal aid office, recommended by the bank manager. A calm voice answered. I'd like to understand my rights, I said. She listened. She asked questions. She explained things slowly, clearly. And at the end of the call, she said something that stayed with me. You're not late, she said. You're right on time. That night, doubt returned. Stronger this time. It whispered things Walter used to say. You're too old for this. You're making things harder than they need to be. Wouldn't it be easier to go back? I sat with the doubt. I didn't fight it. I let it speak. Then I answered it. No, I said softly. Easy isn't the same as right. The next day, Walter showed up. At Marjorie's house. Unannounced. I saw his car through the window and felt my heart jump. Marjorie stood up immediately. Stay here, she said. No, I replied. This time I'll face him. I stepped outside. Walter stood by his car, arms crossed, looking tired and angry. This has gone too far, he said. I agree, I replied. You're embarrassing us, he said, dragging people into our business. You made it public when you tried to erase me, I said. He scoffed. I'm trying to protect you, he said again. I looked at him carefully. You're trying to own me, I replied. He stepped closer. You don't know what you're doing, he said. You'll lose everything. I met his eyes. I already lost myself once, I said. I'm not doing it again. He shook his head. You think you've outgrown me? He asked bitterly. I paused. Yes, I said, I have. That word hit him harder than any insult. Grown. His voice dropped. You'll come back, he said. They always do. I smiled sadly. No, I replied, not this time. He stood there for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him drive off. My legs felt weak. But I didn't sit down. That evening I cried. Not from fear. From grief. Because even when you leave something harmful, you still mourn what you hoped it would be. Marjorie held my hand. It's okay, she said. I know, I replied. I just didn't expect it to hurt like this. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. The bank restored partial access. Legal aid helped me prepare a response. I wrote my statement carefully. Truth only. No anger. No guessing. As I wrote, I realized something. I was no longer reacting. I was acting. One evening, as the sun set outside the window, I closed my notebook and leaned back. The price of freedom was high. But staying had cost me more. My voice. My confidence. My sense of self. Those things were worth protecting. That night, I slept deeply. Not because the danger was gone, but because I trusted myself. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The morning Walter's control began to slip. I felt it before I saw it. I woke up with a calm I didn't recognize at first. Not excitement, not fear, just a steady feeling in my chest, like the ground beneath me had finally stopped moving. I lay in bed at Marjorie's house, staring at the ceiling, listening to birds outside the window. For once, my first thought wasn't about what Walter might do next. It was about what I would do. That difference mattered. I got dressed slowly, choosing clothes that felt like mine. Not what Walter liked, not what made me look easy to manage. Just clothes that felt comfortable and honest. When I walked into the kitchen, Marjorie looked up and smiled. You look rested, she said. I am, I replied. She poured me coffee and sat across from me. Today feels different, she said. Yes, I agreed, because I am. The phone rang just after breakfast. Unknown number. I answered calmly. Mrs. Holloway, a man asked. Yes. This is Mr. Adams from the legal aid office. I'm calling about the petition your husband filed. My heart beat faster, but my voice stayed steady. Yes, I said, I'm aware. We've reviewed it, he continued, and we have concerns. Concerns? I asked. Yes, he said. The claims don't match the evidence you provided, especially the financial records and written notes. I closed my eyes briefly. That's good to hear, I said. He continued, we'd like to submit a formal response on your behalf, with your permission. You have it, I replied. He paused. There's something else, he added. Your husband's request triggered a review of shared accounts. My stomach tightened. And, I asked. And his actions raised questions, he said carefully, about control. I let out a slow breath. So I'm not imagining it, I said quietly. No, he replied, you are not. When the call ended, I sat very still. For years, Walter had told me no one would take me seriously, that people would always believe him. And here was proof that he was wrong. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. The phone rang again. This time, it was my church friend Lillian. I owe you an apology, she said before I could speak. For what? I asked. For believing him, she replied. He came to me last week, said you were losing your grip. I swallowed. And now? I asked. And now, she said softly, I see what he was doing. My chest tightened. What made you see it? I asked. She hesitated. The way he talked, she said. Not worried, angry, like you embarrassed him. That word again. Embarrassed. Control hates exposure. As the day went on, more calls came. Quiet ones. Careful ones. People asking questions, instead of repeating Walter's words. That was how I knew his grip was slipping. Not because he stopped trying, but because people stopped listening. In the early evening, Walter called. I answered. Clarice, he said, his voice tight, we need to fix this. We don't, I replied calmly. You're making me look bad, he snapped. I closed my eyes. You did that, I said, not me. He sighed heavily. You don't understand how this works, he said. People don't like women who make scenes. I felt something rise in me. Not anger. Clarity. I didn't make a scene, I replied. I told the truth. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. They're questioning me, he said quietly. That was the moment. The crack. Who? I asked. The bank, the lawyers, people, he said. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. That's what happens when you try to erase someone, I said. He laughed bitterly. You think you've won? He asked. No, I replied. I think I've grown. He went silent. Then he said, You've changed. Yes, I said. I had to. That night, I sat alone in Marjorie's living room, thinking about the years I had shrunk myself so Walter could feel bigger. I remembered the first time he corrected me in public. The first time he handled my mail. The first time he said, I'll take care of it, and I believed him. I hadn't lost myself all at once. I had given myself away piece by piece. And now, piece by piece, I was taking myself back. The next morning brought the clearest sign yet. A letter arrived from the bank. Not forwarded. Directly addressed to me. I opened it carefully. Account access restored. Independent authority confirmed. My hands trembled. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was victory. Quiet, solid, real. I sat at the table and cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just tears falling freely, finally allowed. Marjorie hugged me tightly. You did this, she whispered. Yes, I replied. I did. Later that day, Walter showed up again. But this time, he didn't knock. He waited at the curb. I stepped outside alone. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Emotionally. This has gone far enough, he said. It has, I agreed. You don't need to do this, he said. You've made your point. This isn't a point, I replied. It's my life. He shook his head. You think you can survive without me, he said. I met his eyes. I already am, I replied. Something in his face shifted. Fear. Not of losing me. Of losing control. You'll regret this, he said. I smiled gently. I regret staying silent, I said, not leaving. He turned away without another word. And I knew then. He had lost. Not because he stopped fighting, but because I stopped shrinking. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something settle inside me. Not peace. Power. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't need permission. The kind that grows slowly, steadily, until it cannot be ignored. Walter thought I needed him to survive. But the truth was simpler. I had outgrown him. And tomorrow, I would take the final step. Not away from him. Toward myself. The morning I knew I was finally standing on my own, I woke up without fear. Not the kind that hides in your chest. Not the kind that waits for footsteps or raised voices. Not the kind that makes you rehearse answers before questions are asked. That fear was gone. In its place was something unfamiliar, but steady. Confidence. I sat up in bed at Marjorie's house and stretched slowly, feeling my body wake up with me. My joints ached, yes. My back felt stiff, but my mind felt clear and my heart felt light. For years, Walter had said I needed him to survive. But here I was. Breathing. Thinking. Choosing. Alive. I got dressed with care, not because I was going anywhere special, but because I wanted to honor myself. A soft blue blouse, comfortable slacks, flat shoes that felt good on my feet. I looked in the mirror and smiled. Not the small smile I used to wear to avoid arguments. A real one. You did it, I whispered. At breakfast, Marjorie noticed right away. You look different today, she said. I feel different, I replied. She poured coffee and slid the cup toward me. What's the plan? She asked. I took a sip and thought for a moment. Today, I said, I make everything official. The words felt heavy. And right. The first stop was the bank. Again. But this time, I didn't feel small walking through those doors. I didn't hesitate. I didn't rehearse what I would say. I walked straight to the counter. I'm here to finalize my independence, I said. The clerk smiled. We've been expecting you, she replied. That sentence made my heart skip. The manager came out and shook my hand. Mrs. Holloway, he said warmly, everything is ready. We sat down together. He explained each paper slowly, making sure I understood. No rushing, no talking over me, no assumptions. I signed where I needed to sign. Each signature felt like a door closing behind me, and another opening in front of me. When I finished, the manager looked at me. You're all set, he said. You're fully authorized, independent. Independent. That word echoed in my mind. I stood up taller. Thank you, I said. No, he replied gently. Thank you for speaking up. Outside the bank, the sun felt brighter. Not because it had changed. Because I had. My phone buzzed as I walked to the car. Walter. I stopped. Stared at the screen. Then I answered. Yes, I said calmly. I heard you were at the bank, he said sharply. I smiled. Yes, I replied. You had no right, he started. I had every right, I interrupted gently. It's my name. Silence. Then anger. You're trying to humiliate me, he snapped. No, I said, I'm trying to live. He exhaled hard. You think this makes you strong? He asked. I know it does, I replied. You'll fail, he said. I paused, then answered with truth. Even if I stumble, I said, I'll stumble forward. I hung up. My hands were steady. That mattered. The next stop was small but meaningful. I went to the post office. For years, Walter handled the mail. I changed that. My name. My address. My control. The clerk smiled and handed me a confirmation slip. Done, she said. I tucked it into my purse like a victory note. By the time I got back to Marjorie's, my phone had several missed calls. Family members. Friends. Word was spreading. Not rumors. Truth. That afternoon, my cousin Denise came over. She sat beside me on the couch and took my hand. I didn't know, she said softly. I know, I replied. You always seemed so quiet, she continued. I thought that was just you. I shook my head. That was me shrinking, I said. She nodded slowly. I see it now, she said. More visits followed. Some awkward. Some emotional. Some healing. Not everyone apologized. But many listened. And that was enough. That evening, Walter showed up one last time. He didn't come inside. He stood outside near the car, hands shoved into his pockets. I walked out alone. You don't have to do this, he said. I already have, I replied. He looked at me for a long moment. You really think you've outgrown me, he said. I nodded. Yes, I said, I do. His voice cracked. You're my wife, he said. And I am still myself, I replied. He looked away. For the first time, he had nothing left to say. That night, I sat with Marjorie on the porch. The sky was dark, full of stars. I'm proud of you, she said. I'm proud of me too, I replied. Later, alone in bed, I thought about the years I spent believing I was weaker than I was. The years I spent waiting for permission. The years I spent confusing control for care. I whispered to myself, you survived him. You survived silence. You survived doubt. Walter thought I needed him to survive. But the truth was clearer than ever now. I had outgrown him the moment I remembered who I was. And tomorrow would bring the final proof. The night before everything finally settled, I did not sleep much. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind kept walking forward, step by step, into a future that no longer needed permission. I lay in bed at Marjorie's house listening to the soft sounds of the night, a passing car, a distant dog barking, the quiet breathing of a home that felt safe. For years, nights like this were filled with second-guessing. Did I say the wrong thing? Did I upset him? How do I fix this? But that night, the questions were different. What do I want? What do I deserve? Who am I becoming? Those questions felt powerful. Morning came with a clear blue sky, the kind that makes everything look honest. I stood by the window for a long moment, watching sunlight move across the street. People walked by carrying groceries, talking on phones, living lives that belonged to them. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like one of them. Not someone hidden behind someone else's shadow. I dressed carefully. Not for Walter. Not to prove anything. But because today mattered. A deep brown blouse. Comfortable black pants. Shoes that felt solid on my feet. I wanted to feel grounded. At breakfast, Marjorie studied me quietly. Today's the day, she said. Yes, I replied. You nervous? She asked. I thought about it. No, I said, I'm clear. She smiled. That's better than brave, she said. The gathering was small. Not dramatic. Not public in the way Walter feared. Just family. The people who mattered enough to hear the truth from my mouth instead of his. Marjorie's living room filled slowly. My sister. A cousin. 2 longtime family friends. People who had heard rumors. People who had wondered. People who were ready to listen. When Walter arrived, the room shifted. He walked in confidently at first, like he always did. His shoulders were straight, his chin lifted, that familiar look of authority on his face. Then he saw me, standing, calm, unmoved. Something in his expression flickered. "What is this?" he asked. "A conversation," I replied. He scoffed. "This is unnecessary," he said. "You're making things uncomfortable." I smiled softly. "They were uncomfortable already," I said. "Just quiet." He turned to the others. "I'm worried about her," he said quickly. "She's been confused." I raised my hand gently. "No," I said, "you don't speak for me." The room went still. That had never happened before. I stepped forward. My heart beat steadily. "I'm not confused," I said. "I'm aware." Walter laughed nervously. "See," he said, "this is what I mean." I looked at him. "This is what I mean," I said. I spoke slowly, clearly. I told them about the bank accounts, the locked drawers, the appointments I never agreed to, the way my words were corrected, the way my choices were narrowed. No anger, no shouting, just truth. Walter interrupted. "She's exaggerating," he said. I turned to him. "You told me I wouldn't survive without you," I said. "Did you not?" He hesitated. "That's not what I meant," he replied. "It's exactly what you said," I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out copies. Bank confirmations. Letters. Notes. Proof. Not because I needed it, but because truth deserves witnesses. The room changed. I could feel it. The way people shifted in their seats. The way eyes moved from Walter to me. Not pity. Understanding. "You controlled everything," I said quietly, "and you called it care." Walter stood up. "This is enough," he snapped. "You're turning them against me." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm finally turning toward myself." There was silence. Heavy. Then my cousin spoke. "Clarice," she said softly, "why didn't you say something sooner?" I swallowed. "Because I thought love meant shrinking," I replied. "I was wrong." Walter looked around. He was losing the room. He could feel it. "You're all making a mistake," he said. "She needs me." I met his eyes. "I needed you to see me," I said. "You chose control instead." No one spoke for him. That was new. That was final. He left shortly after. Not in anger. In defeat. The door closed behind him quietly. Like so many doors had closed behind me before. But this one closed for good. After he left, the room exhaled. Someone touched my shoulder. "I'm sorry," a friend said. "I see you now," another added. I nodded. "That's enough," I replied. Later that evening, after everyone had gone, I sat alone. The house felt peaceful. Not triumphant. Peaceful. My phone buzzed. A message from Walter. "You've changed." I stared at it. Then I replied with 3 words. I had to. I placed the phone down and leaned back. The final confrontation had not been loud. It had not been dramatic. It had been honest. And honesty has a way of ending things cleanly. As night fell, I thought about the title of my story. My husband thought I needed him to survive. The next day, I outgrew him. I smiled. Because it was true. And tomorrow, I would step into a life that no longer needed explanation. No longer needed defense. Just living. The morning after everything ended, I woke up alone. Not lonely. Alone. There is a difference. I lay in bed at Marjorie's house, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. No tension. No waiting for someone else's mood. No careful planning of words before speaking. Just stillness. And in that stillness, I felt something settle deep inside me. Peace. For years, mornings had started with checking myself. Did I sleep too long? Will he be annoyed? What version of him will I get today? That morning, my first thought was simple. What do I want to do today? I smiled. I got up slowly and made my bed, not because someone expected it, because I wanted the room to feel neat, orderly, mine. I walked into the kitchen and made tea, humming softly without realizing it. Marjorie noticed. "You're singing," she said with a smile. I paused. "I am," I replied, surprised. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought carefully. "Whole," I said. She nodded. "That's the word," she replied. The days that followed were not dramatic. No shouting. No big speeches. Just living. And that was the biggest change of all. I found a small apartment not far from Marjorie. Nothing fancy. Just 2 rooms, clean windows, and a little balcony that caught the afternoon sun. The first time I walked inside with the keys in my hand, my chest tightened. Not from fear. From pride. This space was mine. I arranged things slowly. Photos where I wanted them. Furniture that felt comfortable. No locked drawers. No hidden papers. Every choice felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Walter tried once more. A message. Short. "You didn't have to do all this." I read it carefully. Then I deleted it. No reply. Some conversations end not with words, but with silence. And that silence was mine to keep. As weeks passed, people adjusted. Some stayed close. Some drifted away. That was okay. I learned something important. Anyone who only loves you when you are small does not love you. They love control. One afternoon, my sister came to visit my new place. She looked around quietly. "This feels like you," she said. "It is," I replied. She hesitated. "I wish I'd noticed sooner," she said. I took her hand. "I needed to notice first," I replied. I started doing things I had put off for years. Simple things. Walking in the park. Reading books again. Taking my time in stores without rushing. I joined a small community group at the library. Not to talk about my past, just to be present. People learned my name. Not as someone's wife. As me. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sun dip low, I thought about Walter. Not with anger. With clarity. He had believed I needed him to survive because he needed me to believe that. Without my fear, he had nothing to stand on. And I had taken that away. Months later, a letter arrived. Not from him. From the bank. Everything finalized. Everything clean. Everything independent. I held the letter for a long time. Then I placed it in a drawer. Unlocked. That night, I slept deeply. Dreamless. Rested. Sometimes, people asked how I found the strength to leave so late in life. I always gave the same answer. "I didn't find strength," I said. "I remembered it." Strength doesn't disappear. It waits. On my birthday, I stood in front of the mirror and studied my face. The lines. The gray hair. The eyes that had seen too much and survived anyway. "You made it," I whispered. And I meant it. I thought back to the woman I used to be. The one who asked permission. The one who stayed quiet to keep peace. The one who thought survival meant obedience. I wished I could reach back and tell her something. So I said it out loud. "You were never weak," I said. "You were just unheard." One afternoon, I ran into Walter by chance. At a grocery store. He looked older. Smaller. He stopped when he saw me. "So," he said awkwardly, "you seem fine." I smiled politely. "I am," I replied. He hesitated. You really think you didn't need me? He asked. I met his eyes. No, I said. I needed myself. That was the last thing I ever said to him. As I walked away, I didn't feel victory. I felt freedom. And that was better. Now, when I wake up, I do not rush. I do not brace myself. I live. I choose. I speak. My husband thought I needed him to survive. The next day, I outgrew him. And in doing so, I found a life bigger than fear. Bigger than silence. Bigger than control. A life that finally fit me.